Hi, and welcome to Commsverse. This session is Back to the Office. How will virtual meetings happen when we return to our office? And we're going to be visiting with Anders Lucke, who is going to be presenting this. So take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Sharon. That's very kind of you to introduce me like that. And I am happy to be here at Commsverse. And I know that a lot of you people out there are expecting my colleague, Steve Blackman, to present this. And he's actually not here today, so I'm going to cover his presentation slot. And I'll talk about this back to the office, how we will return to the office and how meetings will happen when we return to our offices. And I think that's a very important topic these days. Anyway, so my name is Anders Lucke. I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Alliances, working specifically with Microsoft at Pexip. You can see my email there. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well, and also my Twitter handle, obviously, if you are interested in that. I'm a big LinkedIn guy, so LinkedIn is my preferred platform if you want to reach out after this session or during the session. Anyway, so to the topic today, and I'm actually going to show this because this is the cover of the recent Technology Record magazine that came out just a week ago, and it is all about delivering continuity in a crisis. We're in a very specific situation right now, very special situation, obviously, with the pandemic worldwide. Everybody's working from their home offices. Everybody's working from remote locations. Everybody was sent home, on a specific day, in the work life. And then things were changing very rapidly. And I always like to joke about this thing as well. This joke that goes around on the internet that says, who drove your digital transformation? Was it your CIO? Was it your CTO? Or was it actually COVID-19? And we know what the answer is. So we're here today to talk about, what happens when we get back to the office. What is the normal today? What is the new normal? It's changed from how we had it, and it's changed from how we did things a few months back only. And many people are actually doing a lot of work now to understand what this return will be and what this going back to the office will be and so forth. If you look at McKinsey, for instance, and company, they're doing reports. This is a free download on the McKinsey website, so that's a very good report to read. If you look at Gartner, if you look at any other let's say analyst or any other consulting company out there, they're doing a lot of things about how do we return employees to the workplace? How do we get back to the office, and what happens when we get back to the office? And I think we've heard about the 4 phases of returning to the office, and we're now in the planning stages. We're now in the returning somewhat to the office and so forth. But the fact is, we don't know what's going to happen just yet. There are a couple of things that we do know. And one of these things is that it seems office buildings and returning to the office, that's the one thing that is likely to reopen the last across many countries in the world. I know that there are a few countries here. There are a lot more countries covered in some of these reports. This is again from the McKinsey report. But if you look at these trends, it's very, very clear. It's very distinct. It's very, very obvious that we are going to see a very new normal, on how we work, on how we do things, and how we interact with each other, how business to business is happening, and how business to consumers is happening, and so forth. And the office, like I said, is likely to become the last one to open, which means there will be a lot of open and a lot of closed, but a lot of unused office buildings around the world. Now, still, we think that we're going to go back to the office, obviously, at some point, and this is there's some things that we need to discuss on this. I actually also wrote an article for this Technology Record magazine, Back to the Office After COVID-19. And the topic of this conversation is the behavioral change that we have seen. And this is where we talk about those things again with what has happened, what has changed, what has really driven the digital transformation piece. And that's really simple and really easy to see. Some of the facts and learnings. COVID-19 has changed the way we work. It's changed dramatically how we work. Working from home is still today using a lot of existing tools, existing things that we are used to from the office, from the corporate network. And obviously we know that the Teams usage has gone through the roof. It's been an insane amount of usage happening since beginning of March or February when these things started to happen. So going back to the office poses a big challenge, and that challenge isn't necessarily about physical distancing and so forth. It is more about so official guidelines are obviously being posted, and official guidelines are obviously being put in place for how to return to the office. Health and safety obviously comes first. It's about disinfection of surfaces. It's about keeping people safe. It's about keeping the distance in the in the lineup for the for lunch cafes and so forth. And it's about taking care of each other, making sure we phase in, and we have some groups of people coming in first. We have the pioneers, we have the super important people to return to the office first, and then we're going to slowly fill these offices up with people as we return to the office. Now, I saw a webinar just a couple of weeks ago by Crestron, actually, and they posed a question at the webinar. And the question that was posed was, to what extent do you think our offices will be filled up in a year from now? And the majority of people, 70%, thought that we would be between 30 and 70% in the office, which means 30% are still empty office spaces, office desks and office things where people still continue to work remotely, and people continue to work from their homes and their houses and so forth. And that's the new normal. That's where people are going to be. People are going to work from other locations. People are not going to be in the office. And then that's obviously a big change and big things. So obviously back to the office, social distancing, there will be maximum occupancy numbers for meeting rooms. The meeting room utilization will go down. And as I said, no official guidelines for the behavioral changes that we've seen is in how we're meeting these days. And what I mean by that is, this is quite simple. Today, everybody uses Teams. And that's why we're here today. This is what we're looking at the moment. We're looking at the Teams live event. And when everybody was sent home, we saw a skyrocketing usage increase for Microsoft Teams. Everything went up and everybody started to use Teams. People were sent home with the laptops, now start using Teams. That's how you meet. This is obviously a typical meeting. People sit at their homes with the Teams meeting happening with 4 people, 5 people, not any number of people. And the change then and the challenge when you get back to the office is this here. It's quite simple. So when you return to the office, when people return to their offices, there's going to be a lot of meeting rooms, and there's going to be a lot of meeting rooms with existing meeting room equipment from Cisco, from Poly, from Lifesize and Sony, and and a number of other vendors out there that are not Teams compatible. You cannot longer walk into a meeting room and expect to push that button and join the Teams meeting, because now every meeting happens on Teams. And that poses a big challenge. That poses a big behavioral challenge for the enterprise and for the corporate. Because the fact is, Siri, I'm not talking to you. So the fact is, when you go back to the office now, you will see people coming into the meeting rooms, and the meeting rooms will be underutilized, and there will be fewer people in the meeting rooms because there are social distancing, there are physical barriers and so forth for joining the meeting rooms. And in these meeting rooms, there are systems and there are things and there are ways of joining meetings that no longer will be able to join those meetings people now are accustomed to. Because the fact is, And you can look at this graph, and this has been a tremendous increase in usage for Microsoft Teams. Now this says Microsoft Teams adoption, and it says 75 million daily active users, and that was a number that was posted back in April. Now there are reasons to believe, obviously, that that this number is much higher today, but we're talking about daily active users. And as some of you out there are listening, and you probably have paid attention to this Teams usage number over some time, you will also know that the numbers that were posted back in last year and so forth were monthly active users, not daily active users. So there's a reason to believe that this graph is even much steeper than it is right here. But 75 million daily active users on Teams, where all the meetings happens on Teams, all the meetings and all the daily interactions and all the daily productivity challenges and so forth happen on Teams. This is a big trend that we're seeing. Now, this big trend, and combine that with the meeting rooms that are using other types of technologies, and the meeting rooms that are using other types of meeting devices and so forth that are not compatible with Teams, will pose a big challenge for the enterprise and for the corporate when people return to the office. Fact is, people will go back to the office, they will sit in meeting rooms, and they will sit around their laptops because they are unable to join the Teams meeting that they're invited to from that meeting room system that already sits in that room. Now, at Pexip, we've seen some other interesting statistics as well, and here's one interesting graph, I think. This is the date we went to lockdown in Norway. That was the 12th of March, and I'm from Norway, just to have that said. And Pexip is a Norwegian company with worldwide coverage. But this is the date we went into lockdown in mid-March. This is the cloud video interop usage trend. And for those of you not familiar with cloud video interop, that is the technology that enables you to take a standards-based meeting room, a video conferencing room, and join into a Teams meeting. So you can walk into any Cisco-based room, for instance, and join a Teams meeting using our technology to join that Teams meeting. So obviously, just as we saw lockdown happening, what happened then is that nobody went to the office. Nobody was joining the Teams meetings with the Cisco meeting room or the Poly meeting room or the Sony meeting room that was in the meeting room, because nobody was in the office. There was no requirement for this. Now, since about mid-April, we've seen some people return to the office, and we've seen a tremendous increase in how this technology is being utilized, from about April onwards. This is very interesting because we haven't really started to return to the offices yet, but what we have seen is that all the meetings now are happening on Teams, and all the customers that we have that are using this technology already are already using much more of it than they were before COVID and before lockdown happened. What that means is that the general meeting and the general video meeting now happens on Teams rather than on any other technology. It's no longer a video conferencing to video conferencing type call. It's now a video conferencing to Teams type call that happens for most of the large corporates. And the reason for that, obviously, is the fact that everybody was sent home with laptops. Now everybody knows exactly how to schedule a Teams meeting. Everybody knows how to book a Teams meeting. Everybody knows how to join a Teams meeting. And the Teams meeting becomes the de facto standard for everybody in the corporate and everybody in the enterprise. Well, what then? What about returning to the office? What happens then when we return to the office? Fact is, like I said earlier, we're likely to see something like this. People joining around the laptop, joining that Teams meeting from the laptop rather than from the meeting room system in that meeting room. So there's a lot of meeting room systems out there. Obviously, there's a lot of meeting rooms with video-based systems and so forth. What we want to have happen, and what employees want to have happen, and what enterprises want to have happen, is that we go into the meeting room and join the meeting just as we would any standard video meeting that was there from before. So any standard meeting that you would walk in to the meeting room, you press that green button to join the meeting, and there you have it, regardless of what kind of meeting it is. specifically because employees don't really know what kind of meeting they're joining, whether they join a WebEx meeting, whether they join a Zoom meeting, whether they join a Teams meeting. It doesn't really matter as long as you can walk into the room and press the green button and join that meeting simply and effortlessly. So discussing a little bit about cloud video interop, what that is, for those of you who are unfamiliar. It is very basic. There's a very basic way of discussing what it is. It is really joining a Teams meeting using any kind of third-party video conferencing system. That is the basic idea. Obviously, there is content sharing, there is content shared, back and forth. So you can share content from a Teams meeting to the video conferencing system. You can share content from the video conferencing system to Teams, and it will be experienced just like a standard video meeting on the video side, and it will be experienced just like a standard Teams meeting on this Teams side. And for the end user, it is completely transparent. It is completely transparent, as you join a meeting. It is completely transparent as you attend a meeting. It is completely transparent as you end the meeting. So what you will see is the user experience that you're accustomed to, and you will see and experience the things that you are expecting. So there will be no change in how people experience their meetings if you engage in that such technology. The fact is, this thing poses a big challenge, obviously, because there is so many Teams meetings happening now. And like I said, we risk the fact that that meeting rooms are left unused because of inability to join the meetings that people actually need to be joining. So for the end user, it's very simple, obviously. Join a Teams meeting using that green button on the Cisco panel. When it's installed and when everything is up and running and everything is good to go, this technology, like I said, becomes transparent. This is a Cisco panel that you will see here. This is the exact Cisco experience. People that are accustomed to and used to the Cisco experience will just walk in. They will not know it's a Teams meeting, but they will know the name of the meeting, and they will click that green button and be placed into the meeting. And that works for Cisco, that works for Poly. This obviously is a Cisco type system, so that's why it says here a Cisco system, but it works for Poly and other devices as well. Now, joining Teams meetings, as I said, could be happening from any standards-based video conferencing system. So if you represent an enterprise, if you represent a company that has a lot of video conferencing systems and so forth, this is the technology that you need to make sure that your employees, when they return to the office, are walking into the experience that they're used to working, but that the experience that they're used to having, but still be able to join that meeting seamlessly and effortlessly without really knowing that it is a Teams meeting happening at the back end. It says a trusted VC join directly and bypass the lobby. Everybody's probably familiar with the lobby functionality of Teams. So when somebody joins from outside of the Teams domain, and somebody joins from outside your company, you're going to have to admit them into the meeting. With Pexip, you can have trusted video conferencing systems, so they will sit on the same domain and bypass that lobby functionality. So when your CEO or your executives or anybody that joins late will not be sitting and waiting, they will just be placed into the meeting from their boardrooms or whatever they want to join from. And obviously, we're also using customer domains for simple in dial-in addresses and so forth. So if you have to join a meeting using a dial-in string instead of just a green button, in those cases where that is becoming necessary, then it would be on the customer domain. It will be on your own domain, so it would be easy to join and easy to remember the dial-in address. There's no massive codes or massive strings and so forth that you'll have to remember, and that will have to be trained, for your employees. So just a little bit more about Pexip. I would say Pexip is available both as a dedicated enterprise platform that can run in your own Azure tenant or in your own private or public cloud, or we could deliver it as a service. And it's all, the basic same functionality for everything. Some people are more concerned about keeping data private, more concerned about keeping traffic inside their network and so forth. Then the dedicated enterprise platform is probably for them. Others are more interested in just having everything delivered as a service, good to go. Takes 15 minutes to set up and deploy, and the service would be a super good thing for them. And now the question is very often as well, what does the user need to do? What does the user need to do to have this thing working and have this thing set up and have this system? Like I said, it was transparent. So does the user even have to do anything? Well, a couple of things that you will see happening is whenever you schedule a meeting and whenever Pexip is in the mix at your company, you will have some extra things that show up in the meeting invites. So you book your meeting just like you used to. You book a Teams meeting, you booked any meeting from Outlook, from Teams, whatever you're used to, from Calendar. That shows up, and that will send out a meeting invite to all the attendees and so forth. That will contain some extra information. And that extra information is completely customizable, for the customer. So it's completely customizable for what kind of domain you're using, what kind of interesting information you're putting in, and so forth. A couple of these things are populated by Exchange, so that will be, added to the dial-in thing, to the dial-in information as well, such as the conference ID here. That's unique for each and every Teams meeting. But the fact is, you will be able to have this with your own domain. You will be able to have this very simply and very easily accessible in the Teams meeting. So if you have to join a Teams meeting using any other kind of technology and you walk into any room, you can use this information to join that meeting. Now, if you want to join like an ad hoc meeting, it is as simple as dialing the conferencing string, the customer URI, and the conference ID, and then you will be placed into the meeting. There will also be other alternate dialing instructions. Let's see here. And those dial-in instructions will be provided as an extension to things where if you want to have a direct join, or if you have a QR code. So we can even supply a QR code, in-room QR code thing, where the end user can join that meeting without even touching any of the devices in the room. So a complete touch-free experience in room, where the end user only interacts with his or her own mobile device that they're always probably touching. We can also provide a way of joining these meetings using Skype for Business. So if there are other people that actually want to join your Teams meeting using Skype for Business, that is in fact even possible. And yeah, so there are ways of doing that. So from Skype for Business, if that is needed. Like I said, the one-touch join part is also part of this solution. And what you will see is that to enable one-touch join, it is as simple as adding the boardroom, for instance, or adding the meeting room that you want to have in that meeting. So if you, for instance, invite your CEO, if you invite a specific meeting room, that green button, that important meeting, that Teams meeting, will show up on the Cisco device, on the Poly device, and so forth, for people and for employees just to walk into the room and touch the button to join that meeting. It is important that the asset is obviously invited to the meeting. Otherwise, the meeting room will not know that it's supposed to join that meeting. One-touch join is available for Poly and Cisco devices. It's for Exchange, for Google Calendar, for Office 365, obviously, and so forth. And it works for Teams, hence Skype for Business on-prem and of Office 365. So if you're in the migration phase from Skype for Business to Microsoft Teams, this will provide feature, what do you say? This will provide you a simple path migrating from one to the other, so there is continuity in how that works. And as a small bonus, it actually can join all sorts of different types of meetings as well. So using this this technology, you can join any meeting from any device that you have using both One Touch Join and the QR code that I discussed a little bit earlier. Okay, that said, that's a bit about that. So I'm not going to go through a lot of detail on these things here, but the trusted device, I discussed that as well. How a trusted device will join the meeting directly without any lobby or anybody having to admit that trusted device. If you look at that, compare that to a non-trusted device. You're familiar with this admit functionality, where you're going to have to see who's in the lobby, who do you want to admit, and so forth. With Pexip, you can avoid this technology for your trusted devices. So all devices on your network, for instance, or other devices that you want to trust, you can avoid this this lobby part. So you can bypass it completely, which means it's still as secure, but it's actually a trusted device that sits on your network already. We can also do a couple of other things that I think are quite important. One of them is to register video conferencing systems to the Pexip service, and then everything becomes trusted and everything becomes part of the typical solution. Now, you may ask, why do you want to register devices to the Pexip service? And I'll actually get to that in a split second. One key thing that we see for all these people that are using this technology is the fact that it will maintain the native user experience. I talked about the native user experience for Teams. Everybody joins a Teams meeting today. The fact is that will continue to be a Teams meeting. It is impossible to see in the Teams meeting that these other devices joining are actually meeting room systems from Cisco or Poly or anybody else. And it is a very unique way of providing business continuity and continuity in being able to join meetings from any number of systems, even though all your meetings now are happening on Teams. Tackling complexity. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, like I said, on technology, etc. But the fact is, when you have mixed technology, there is going to be complexity. And some numbers say that a very large number of companies with more than a few thousand employees, I think it was 60% of companies with more than a few thousand employees have 3 or more meeting solution systems, on hand, which means you probably have video conferencing, you probably have Microsoft Teams, you probably still have some Skype for Business, to be honest. You probably also have some other users that are using other technologies such as Zoom and such as WebEx and so forth. Now, what we want to do is make sure that you can rid yourself of all that, consolidate all those types of technologies, standardize on a single platform, make sure that you go with Teams as the meeting platform, but use all your current devices and use all your investments to join those meetings. And that creates a very simple user experience, and that creates more efficiency for everybody, and that creates obviously more usefulness for a lot of people. I did discuss this briefly before. Pexip is, as I said, available as a dedicated enterprise platform, but also as a cloud service. And going into a bit more detail on that is talking about the Pexip connector for additional capabilities. Now, I talked about CVI, so Cloud Video Interop, as a standard functionality and the basic functionality. Well, at Pexip, we can also provide a lot of other types of functionalities included with the CVI, which means that you are free to decommission some of your existing infrastructure. You're free to decommission some of your existing other third-party appliances and so forth, and maintain the video conferencing use case, including that B2B calling and so forth, and point to point. And the fact is, with simplifying this stuff and also making sure that it runs either in your own Azure tenant, in our tenant, or in our as a service, it makes it so much more simple and so much more predictable and so much more easy for everybody, from the back-end administrator to the front-end end user, who's going to, like I said, return to the office and not understand what kind of meeting he or she is going to join. Let's see, and now my slides actually disappeared here. That's okay. Let me just see if I can click a couple of things. Okay, so yeah, so available, as I said, boom, boom, boom. And what happened here? There we go. If you want to know more about what this is and how this can help specifically when you return to the office, because we know that this is going to be a fantastic challenge for everybody. And when I say fantastic, I mean that in the sense of a big challenge for everybody. A lot of the customers we're talking to today realize that all their meetings are happening on Teams, and a lot of the customers we're talking to today realize that they will have to go back to the office and fix this challenge before they return to the office. And with that, I like to say thank you for listening. This is the last slide, I think. Thank you for listening, and hope to maybe see you in a breakout if possible, or I posted that in the Q&A, and I'll also open the Q&A because I haven't seen any Q&A so far, if there's anything. Yeah, so if there is any interest in going to the breakout, I will join you guys there. Thank you very much.